Welcome back, Defenders. Today we're going to start with my favorite story. We are not Russia. Thousands protest Fico's pro-Kremlin agenda in Bratislava. Bratislava is the capital of Slovakia, and Fico is their prime minister. At the moment, the people of Slovakia are protesting against their insanely corrupt prime minister. How do we know he's corrupt? And this story is insane. For 14 days, Slovakia had no official information about the whereabouts of their prime minister, Robert Fico, who vanished following a trip to Moscow on December 22nd. Government officials remained silent on his location for 2 weeks. However, yesterday, Fico released a video statement in which he threatened to halt support for Ukrainian refugees, accusing Zelenskyy of sabotaging Russia's gas supplies to Slovakia, causing an annual loss of 500 million euros. Okay. But Slovakian journalists discovered where he filmed this video, where he currently is. And he's currently in Vietnam, staying in the luxurious Madame Butterfly suite, which is pretty expensive. This is the name of the Slovak journalist. I want to give him credit. Here's the video he put out. I can't play the audio because there's music playing, but this is the video of Prime Minister Fico speaking, saying, "This is all Ukraine's fault. Russia is not our enemy. We need gas, blah, blah, blah." But he's in Vietnam, and he's been there for Christmas and New Year's. The nightly rate of the Madame Butterfly suite is 5,700 euros per night. And to put this in perspective, the monthly salary for the Prime Minister of Slovakia is only 11,000 euros a month. You would only do this as a EU leader, and that's what he is. You would only vacation in Vietnam, as opposed to an EU country or a NATO country, because you're corrupt and you want privacy. And I guarantee you in this hotel suite, frowned upon activities were probably occurring involving illicit substances and who knows? I mean, I'll link the video down below if you want to check out this opulent suite, but this is corruption. If taking a 2-week vacation to Vietnam for Christmas and New Year's is a normal thing for a prime minister of a country to do, then you can publicly tell your people. You don't need an investigative journalist to figure out where you're filming your Kremlin propaganda videos. He literally went from Moscow to Vietnam. This guy's a piece of work. Slovak state energy company to continue supplying electricity to Ukraine despite Fico's threats. So Fico is applying pressure on Ukraine to keep this gas pipeline open because that's what Russia wants. And he's threatening Ukrainian refugees in Slovakia. He's threatening to cut off Slovakia's energy supplies to Ukraine. None of this is going to work. This guy's an idiot, and he doesn't have any real power. But it is concerning that an EU leader is so openly corrupt and supporting the Kremlin. Here's a map showing all the pipelines and when they shut down. Nord Stream, Yamal, and Soyuz all shut down in 2022. The Brotherhood pipeline going through Ukraine to Slovakia and Hungary, this is what has Fico so upset. So of all these gas pipelines, the only one remaining open is the Turk Stream in the south. And who knows? Something might happen to this pipeline. I don't think Turkey or Bulgaria would be too happy about that, but this is war. And it's obvious now which were the most recent pipelines built, and it was the Turk Stream and the Nord Stream, meaning Russia was deliberately building these pipelines the last 10 years to circumvent Ukraine. After the Maidan Revolution in 2014, it was always Russia's intention to invade this country, potentially destroy this country, and they wanted alternative flows of gas to Europe to keep the money flowing and to keep their Western European customers happy while they're invading cities and destroying countries. Like, this has been a project in motion from Vladimir Putin since he returned to power in 2012. There's no other way at this point to interpret all the decisions he's made in the last 12 years. The top story concerning the gas being cut off continues to be Moldova and Transnistria. Russian gas cutoff sparks more blackouts in breakaway Moldovan region. Russian-backed Transnistria rejects EU gas despite supply crisis. So there are solutions for Transnistria. The Europeans are offering support, but this breakaway province of Moldova is still loyal to the Russians, and they're shooting themselves in the foot, refusing help. Instead, they're just shutting down their industry. Breakaway Moldovan region shuts almost all industry amid their energy crisis. And Transnistria is urging their residents to heat stoves with wood amid significant gas shortages. If you're cold in the wintertime, go outside and chop down a tree and burn some firewood to stay warm. This is moronic. The people of Transnistria, it's about 500,000 people. They can't keep doing this. And if Russia can't pay them off anymore and offer them free gas, basically, they have to reconcile. They have to reconcile with the people of Moldova, end this civil war, really, that's been going on for over 30 years. And they need to move on. They need to move on from the Soviet Union and move on from modern-day Russia. Another top story I want to quick mention: China may have stopped Putin from using nuclear weapons, according to Secretary of State Blinken. Russia was prepared for a nuclear strike on Ukraine, but reportedly China dissuaded Putin. This was back in late 2022 when the war wasn't going well, and I do think Putin was considering a tactical nuke somewhere on the battlefield. Here's the quote from Blinken: "Even if the probability went from 5 to 15%, when it comes to nuclear weapons, nothing is more serious." Neither Russia nor China has officially confirmed such a dialogue. However, Beijing has repeatedly and publicly spoken out against the use of nuclear weapons. So if Russia used a nuke out of convenience in their war of aggression, China could have participated in economic sanctions or froze Russian reserves, or, there's a lot China could do to make Russia seriously suffer. And thank you, China, I guess, but no, Russia can't use a nuke for numerous reasons. How China and India would react is just one of the most compelling. But that doesn't stop the Russians from threatening nuclear war every single day on Kremlin State TV. I have another clip for you from Russia Media Monitor titled "Vladimir Solovyov and Andrew Gurlyov discuss Russia's strategy." And this is 8 minutes of just pure warmongering, but I'm going to read for you about a minute and a half of this clip. So this is Solovyov and Andrei going back and forth, talking about their favorite target to nuke, Great Britain. Great Britain. What makes it great? Let's finish off this island once and for all. I've said this before. If someone thinks that anyone will be worse off if we erase Britain off the face of this earth, including ourselves, no one will be worse off for it. Will there be a retaliatory strike? No, there won't be. There won't be, for one simple reason. Russia's strategic nuclear forces are on full combat readiness. Ballistic missiles are combat ready. We can deploy the submarines to the areas of their military mission. They can easily stay there for up to 6 months. We can deploy strategic air assets to airfields. It's probably time to arm the KH-55 with nuclear warheads. So no one dares to do anything. We can certainly reach them with Oreshnik and Caliber, and nothing will be left of that island. We need to finally finish off this evil. Negotiations? Everyone says there will be negotiations. No problem. There will be negotiations. without that island. For example, it's so stupid, guys. Once that island is gone, there will be normal negotiations. We will be in a good negotiating position. Secondly, negotiations happen when there's a dead end. Listen, guys, there is no dead end for us. I don't understand why we need these negotiations while we are winning. Honestly, what do we need them for? To my friends in the UK, what did you do to Russia to make them so upset? And I guess this is a fun theory or exercise for the Russians. What if we just completely nuked the British Isles and made it a radioactive wasteland, and then the rest of Europe, out of fear, will just surrender to Russia, and the Russians can finally make it all the way to Portugal. That's their master plan. That's their strategy. Yes, I think the United States, with our own nuclear arsenal, would respond. There's a lot of Americans who live in the UK. Additionally, the UK has nuclear submarines for retaliatory strikes, specifically on Moscow, if anything ever happens. But this is an insane conversation. Where I'm going with this is it doesn't sound like the Russians want to talk. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the Kremlin maintains demands of Ukrainian capitulation, which makes any negotiations impossible. Nothing of interest. Russian envoy dismisses Trump's reported peace deal proposals on Ukraine. The team of President-elect Donald Trump so far hasn't offered anything interesting for Moscow regarding the end of the war in Ukraine. This is according to Russia's UN representative. I could read the quote, "What's the point?" This could all be a bluff, and maybe Russia is desperate for negotiations, and they're just faking this, they could be faking strength to give themselves the best negotiating position possible. They're trying to get as much concessions from Donald Trump as possible. But this conflicts with reality on the ground. The Russians have embarrassed themselves the last 3 years. Their navy has been defeated, their air force has been defeated, their ground forces are pathetic, taking horrendous losses just to capture tree lines and wheat fields and destroyed villages. Russia's had no significant military win this entire year. Their advances in Donetsk don't change the situation on the ground much at all. I think Donald Trump knows this. But we are moving in the direction of a potential freeze in the conflict or a ceasefire. This could seriously happen in the next 2 or 3 months. Number of Ukrainians open to territorial concessions rises to 38% in a recent poll. The problem with these polls is you have to explain what exactly does that mean, territorial concession, and what do you get for a territorial concession? Are there real security guarantees? I think most Ukrainians would not accept territorial concessions if there's no security guarantees that Russia just won't come back for more. But the polling numbers are changing. Only 19% agree with this statement in December of 2023, and only 8% in December of 2022. So here is a recent interview that President Zelenskyy gave, in which he's talking about European forces coming to Ukraine, either to help in combat this year, or as peacekeepers once there's a armistice or ceasefire. I want to read what President Zelenskyy says in this interview. I believe you've heard about President Macron's initiative to deploy a contingent of the French Republic in Ukraine. We support this initiative, but France alone is not enough European forces. I think the UK will support it along with some other countries who we agreed not to publicly name for now, because they're worried to make this stance media visible due to fears of Russia's influence. For now, that's it, but this was discussed during our meeting with Macron and Trump in France. I saw Trump has a positive attitude towards this idea, but I raised the question about these forces. We haven't heard which countries will participate or if the United States will be among them. And if so, to what extent? It's still too early to say. We need to understand that placing 1,000 to 3,000 troops as a symbolic gesture won't work. At the moment, Zelenskyy is talking about individual countries, these are NATO countries, but not NATO forces, being sent to Ukraine mostly in support roles. Trainers, advisors, logisticians, maintainers. This would free up Ukrainian forces to redeploy to the front lines. Now, a lot of countries are scared. France is the only one publicly saying they want to do this. But this is happening behind the scenes. At some point in 2025, countries like France and maybe the UK and some others will publicly announce they're sending troops to Ukraine. These won't be frontline units, these will be support units, but they're still needed, they're still valued, and they can still help Ukraine win. But if there is an armistice or a freeze in the conflict, then I think more European countries will volunteer to send peacekeeping forces. How would this work, given the immense size of this proposed new DMZ? I mean, this is an insane border that would have to be staffed and protected at all times. This isn't practical, but this is a public conversation we have to have so that we can reach the final conclusion that you and I have already reached, that this is not practical. The only acceptable solution that will hold long term is Russia retreats to their internationally recognized 1991 borders and they stop trying to annex the territory of other people's countries. That's the only way this stops. And Russia just can't keep doing this forever. Russia's human loss fighting area ratio exceeds all modern conflicts except for the Korean War. Russian forces are losing up to 1,500 soldiers per day in 2024 while gaining minimal territory, making it the least efficient force-to-territory ratio in modern military operations. This is how bad the Russians are, and how little they care about the lives of their own soldiers. Russia says Ukraine launches counterattack in the Kursk region. I woke up this morning and I saw these headlines. For operational security, nobody on Ukraine's side is going to post pictures or videos for the first 48 hours. But it does appear something is happening. Ukrainian forces launch attacks in multiple directions in Russia's Kursk Oblast, according to officials. I can't really tell you anything because I don't know anything. But I do think over the next 2 days we're going to get more information. And I do think Ukraine is looking for another propaganda win. If they can drive deeper into Russia, deeper into the Kursk Oblast, this will just humiliate the Kremlin even more prior to Trump taking office on January 20th, and we begin these negotiations. Ukraine's not trying to seize this territory. They're just trying to make the Russians look as incompetent and weak as possible prior to sitting down at the negotiating table. So how far will they get? What are they trying to achieve? Where are they going? We're going to find out over the next couple days. Keep these brave soldiers in your thoughts. Let's now get to the bad news for Russia. Russian commander who killed dozens of Ukrainian civilians blown up at a Russian base. A Russian commander implicated in the deadly Horza village strike was critically wounded in an explosion at his base in Shuya, according to Ukrainian intelligence. None of these guys are good guys. Also, the chief of staff of Russia's battalion Storm Ossetia was eliminated in the Zaporizhia region. He was eliminated with an FPV drone, and Ukraine did release the video. If you want to see an FPV drone slam into his car, I'll link this video down below. Drones reportedly target one of Russia's largest sea trade ports in Leningrad. This is the Ust-Luga gas terminal on the Baltic Sea. And I remember Ukraine striking this almost exactly a year ago. This is about 800 kilometers from Ukrainian territory. And this is the photo from last year. I remember laughing about this because they were trying to put out this fire with water in the wintertime, and everything freezes. And when you dump a bunch of water on cold metal, when it's delicate equipment, there's frost wedging, and the ice can destroy sensitive equipment. We don't know how bad the damage is this time. We're not getting any good pictures or videos. There is one video showing an explosion at the refinery or transit terminal. There's always tomorrow night. It's never going to stop. Oil from damaged Russian tankers reaches Sevastopol and annexed Crimea. I've not seen any reports of the oil spill hitting the beaches of Turkey or Georgia yet, but they are washing up on the Russian shores, and they've now reached Crimea, specifically the port city of Sevastopol. Finnish court upholds seizure of Russian tankers suspected of cable sabotage. The Helsinki District Court ruled on January 3rd to uphold Finland's seizure of the Russian Eagle-S oil tanker, denying an appeal to release the ship and its crew. Yeah, you're not getting this ship back, Russia. Ever. Or the oil inside. Or the spy equipment they found on board. I honestly think Russia thought the Baltic countries would do nothing in response and just let this ship go. This is kind of a funny story. Poland did not invite Viktor Orban to the handover ceremony for the EU presidency. For the EU presidency, it rotates between all the members. It was Hungary for the last 6 months, and now it's Poland. And Poland didn't invite Viktor Orban to the transfer ceremony. Now, this might be the top story on Twitter for today, but Russian-American podcaster Lex Fridman has conducted his interview with President Zelenskyy. He promised last month that he would do this and he would release the podcast. It's 3 hours. And as I was getting this video ready this morning, he published it. It was published 2 hours ago, but it's a 3-hour podcast. I'm going to watch this tonight, and if there's enough material, I'll make a reaction video tomorrow. But people are asking, why does this matter? Why does it matter if President Zelenskyy goes on the Lex Fridman podcast? And it's because a lot of Americans who support Donald Trump watch this podcast. When it comes to MAGA, I would say only about 20% of MAGA openly supports Russia. Close to 40 or 50% do support Ukraine. It's this other 30 or 40% in the middle who generally believe that Russia is bad, and they don't necessarily have a problem with Ukraine. They're just isolationists. They just believe that America should stay out of it, and we shouldn't be helping either side in this war. It's those 30 or 40% of MAGA that we need to convince. We need to reach these people and explain to them that Russia is a threat. They're a threat to America's interests. They're a threat to America's security. And if we want to defeat that threat, supporting Ukraine militarily today is our best course of action. So I haven't seen the interview at all. I pulled it up, but I haven't had a chance to watch it. Okay, I did watch a couple minutes, and it's a little weird because the original track is dubbed with AI voiceover, and Lex insisted on speaking Russian to Zelenskyy during the interview. He also speaks English, but Zelenskyy refused to speak Russian back to him. So they're both wearing earpieces for translators, and Lex is speaking Russian and English, and Zelenskyy is speaking Ukrainian and English. It's kind of a mess. They could have just done everything in English, or Lex could have only have spoken English, and Zelenskyy could have only have spoken Ukrainian with the translators and the... I think the reason why Lex insisted on speaking Russian even when Zelenskyy refused is because Lex is also trying to interview Putin, and this might have been a condition from the Kremlin to get the approval for this interview with Putin. Now, Lex hasn't announced this interview with Putin is happening, but he's trying. He's trying really hard to get an invitation to the Kremlin to sit down and talk to Putin for 3 hours. Yikes. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Ukraine hits 24.5 billion in agricultural exports, nearing their pre-war levels. Ukraine has been at war for 3 years, and their agricultural exports are almost back to where they were prior to Russia's full-scale invasion. IT Coalition delivers over 3 million euros in a tech package to boost Ukraine's military digitalization. This is part of a 11-nation coalition. Thank you so much to these 11 nations. Final clip I have for you is the most essential member of the team, the Watcher. I'm sure that dog has seen some things. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.